Hello, on behalf of
Ron.
the Special Forces Charitable Trust, we're so grateful and thankful that you've joined us today. We've got a special guest who's going to be joining us here in just a moment, Gary Beikirch, recent Medal of Honor winner and recipient. And we're grateful for him and his acts of service and everything that he's done for our country. David, love to chat with you for just a couple of minutes here. So David Guernsey, on behalf of the Special Forces Trust, it's phenomenal to be in a journey with you and partnering. And I just serve the trust as a lead ambassador. One, share with us, if you would, a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and a little bit about the trust.
Okay, I know we have some people that know we have a multiple of invitees, those that know a little bit about the trust, those that may be your first time. And so I'm going to sort of take it from the very beginning, 101. The Special Forces Charitable Trust mission is to support the United States Army Special Forces community with relevant programs and services. We have three areas of programs. One is family and community. The second is education, motivation, and the last is veterans and heritage. Probably the thing that we are spend most of our funds on are the family and community. Second is the education, and then the veterans. So in the veterans area, if there's an SF veteran that needs some financial assistance, usually it's for medical, we will provide up to a $2,500 grant for those people. So that's what we do.
Awesome. And David, give us a quick snapshot. You know, there's a lot of activity that's still taking place around the world. We're in unprecedented times as we're now hopefully on the back end of COVID and everything that we've experienced as a country and as a world, really. And the troops are still serving. They're out on the front lines. Give us a sense of a snapshot. One, how many special forces are there, and where are they today around the world?
So there are about 6,500 special forces, nicknamed Green Berets. I am not in the military. I'm not. I don't get those statistics. That's a general number put out by the Public Affairs Office. At any one time, there's about 3,500 to 4,000 that are forward deployed, and they will be in anywhere from 65 to 85 countries every night. Since the middle of March, the Department of Defense has shut down all movement. So there are troops that are sitting in various parts of the country that have not been able to return, and there are people that are waiting to go relieve them from that standpoint. And the military family household is no different than the civilian right now. There's children there. The difference is that probably their father has been in the house longer than any time in his life because of the constant deployment and redeployment. So,
well, we're certainly grateful for those soldiers and men that are serving and their families and the sacrifices that they're making in the field, as well as wives and kids that are back home. Gary, great to see you today, sir.
It's nice to be seen.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate your smile, and we certainly looking forward to hearing a little bit about yourself, your heart, and your story. Maybe you could just take a minute and share with those that are on this call today a little bit about yourself. Just be brief about your background, a little bit about your story, and how you served our country.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate enough to be able to become a member of Special Forces back in 1967. Served with them over in Vietnam. Actually, I served with the 3rd at Fort Bragg, first of all, in 67. Then I re-enlisted for the 5th at Vietnam. Got shot up pretty bad. Spent 10 months in the hospital. When I was released from the hospital, I was assigned to the 10th Special Forces Group at Fort Devens back then, hoping to be able to go to bad tolls. Actually, I didn't want to go to anywhere in the States. I wanted to go back to Vietnam or Okinawa or Panama, but they sent me to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. I was shot up so bad that I was put on a profile. No prolonged standing, no heavy lifting. I was carried as excess in the company, assigned to headquarters company, and they told me to go work at the dental clinic. So I could see the handwriting on the wall. Back then, they were doing a lot of rifts in the military, and I thought that at the very least, I was going to get riffed out of Special Forces and sent to a conventional unit, which was not what I wanted. So I got an early out. I got an early out to go back to school. Went back to college. College was not a good place to be in the 70s, especially for someone that was a veteran. Had some bad experiences there, took off, decided that for me, the best way to heal from the trauma of the war was to try to forget about it. And the best way to forget about it was to go into isolation. So I found a nice little cave up in northern New Hampshire, lived in the White Mountains in a cave for about a year and a half. It was when I was living in the cave that I was told I was being awarded the Medal of Honor. And which, so much for trying to forget about the war. Now they're going to give me a medal for something that I did, and I'm trying to forget about it. But I adjusted, went back to college, got a degree in sociology, psychology, went back to graduate school, got a degree in counseling, and then ended up working as a middle school counselor for 33 years. What better thing to do with a Green Beret combat? I'll go work with middle schoolers. So I went to middle school, spent 33 years there, and I just retired about 5 years ago.
Fabulous. Well, Gary, with phenomenal journey and story, I'm sure we could go into a lot of depths. How many years did you actually serve in the field in Vietnam in the 60s and early 70s? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was there for about a year. I was stationed in the Central Highlands right at the tri-border area where Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam met. Our camp was a small little camp called Dak Siang, which was right in the middle of the highlands. I lived with a tribe of Montagnards called Sedang. There were over 30 tribes of Montagnards spread throughout the highlands. And they were a very critical ally to us in the war. Special Forces worked very closely with the Montagnards. We used them as mercenaries. We trained them and we used them to monitor and to use them as a fighting force along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So I spent most of my time, well, actually pretty much all my time, right there at Dak Siang until April 1st, when our camp got surrounded by 10,000 North Vietnamese. We were surrounded for 30 days. But most of my time there was living in the jungle with the Montagnards. It was a tremendous, tremendous time.
Go ahead, David.
One second. Gary, your MOS, or your military occupational service, was a medic, correct? And that's what you were, that's obviously you were SF, but if somebody got wounded, you were called into action during battle to try to keep people together if they were wounded.
Yeah, actually, I had two MOSs. I was a light weapons specialist, first of all, 11B. But then when I went to Special Forces, they wanted me to continue with the light weapons, and I said, no, I want to be a medic. I want to do something different. And so they said, well, look we'll give you a proposition. We'll let you go through medical training, but if at any time you get below a B in any of the coursework, you're out. Are you willing to risk that? And I said, yeah. I was always up for a challenge. I said, sure, I'll go for that. And so actually, I did pretty well in the medical training through the medical MOS. And as I was able to do okay through both phases of Special Forces training, as well as all the medical training that we had. It's a little bit different back then than it is now.
So Gary, you returned back to the States, went to college. You said it was a tough season of your life, and certainly those were precarious times in the early 70s.
Yes.
You alluded that you lived in a cave, if I understand, for about a year and a half. Tell us a little bit about what was going on in your mind and your heart at that time, and what that was like.
Yeah, as I said, I came back to college, and it wasn't too long before I got spit on. I was living in a van. I had a Volkswagen van. Back then, the GI Bill was only giving you about $100 a month. And so I didn't have a place to stay. So I was living in the van, didn't have any clothes. So I'd wear my Army fatigue jacket. And as soon as somebody saw that you were a veteran, Like when I was in the library, they would walk by, push my books off the table, bump into me, try to knock me down. One morning, when I was sleeping in the van, I woke up, the van was being shaken. I looked out the windows and there was about 20 or 30 college students out there shaking the van, yelling at me, calling me names, taunting me to come outside. They wanted to know what a baby killer looked like. And that was right about then. Shortly after that, I got spit on, and that's when I said, I can't take it anymore. So I took off and I went up into northern New Hampshire. Because of some events that happened in Vietnam, I had an experience that I said that my courage failed because I was dying in the hospital bed in Pleiku. And as much as I tried to keep from going unconscious, I couldn't stop from going unconscious, and I felt like I was dying. And that, passing out 2 or 3 times when you're all shot up is pretty scary. I had passed out a number of times in college, but this was really different, and there was a chaplain that was there when I woke up one time, and he asked me to pray. And I'd never prayed before. I said, I don't know how to pray. I don't know who to pray to. And he said, that's okay. God knows how to listen. And so at 24 years old, I made my first prayer. I just said, God, if you're real, I need you. And something happened. I had an awareness that there was something greater than me that was real. And I called that God. And so when I left the military, I was kind of searching for this God that I knew was real. And but I wanted to go back to college. I switched my major to pre-med, but then after I quit again, I took a Bible and I went up into northern New Hampshire, and I said another prayer. I just said, God, you gave me my life in Vietnam. I should have been killed in Vietnam, but you saved me, so I'm giving my life back to you now. Whatever you want, God, for my life, that's what I want. And I made that prayer in September of '73.
Amen.
2 months or 2 weeks later, I was told that I was going to be awarded the Medal of Honor. So here I am in a cave trying to forget about the war, and I find out that now I'm going to get a Medal of Honor. So I was added to the turmoil that was going on inside of me, because now not only did I have to deal with everything that happened in Vietnam and all the guilt and the anger, but now I had to deal with this. What does this mean? How am I going to live with this? So my time in the cave was spent through a lot of soul searching, a lot of prayer, trying to sort out life, trying to come up with a reason for everything that was happening to me. It was a real time of reflection and revelation.
Gary, what was the emotion like when you heard about receiving the Medal of Honor? And there's usually an event that took place specifically that gives reason for that award and that honoring. Tell us a little bit about that.
The event of getting the medal, or the action?
The action, and the action that you were recognized for.
Yeah, well, there's many times when I'm at an event and they read my citation, and in the citation it talks about me unhesitatingly running through all this fire and doing all this other kinds of things, grabbing individuals that were hurt and shot and taking them down to the medical bunker and everything. And afterwards, I'll say that even in a Medal of Honor citation, mistakes are made. Because first of all, I wasn't running unhesitatingly. That is not a word that I would use to how I was going around in the midst of that battle. There was plenty of hesitation. The other mistake was that I wasn't running at all. Our camp was surrounded, like I said, for 30 days. We had artillery and rocket fire for hours, and then the ground assault started. And by that time, they had dug tunnels, and they were up in our wire. They were over the wire. It was chaos. Within about 3 hours of the attack, I was shot in the back. Shrapnel, the wounds hit my spine, and my spinal cord was knocked out. I couldn't walk. My spinal cord went unconscious. So I wasn't moving around at all. The only reason I did what I did was because my bodyguard, a 15-year-old boy named Dale, he carried me. He found me in the midst of that battle. And because of the love that we had for each other, he picked me up and he was able to carry me I was shot 2 more times as we continued to fight, continued to bring people down to the medical bunker, continued to treat them. He, when I couldn't, when he was shot too, and when he got so weak that he couldn't carry me, he put me on a litter, a stretcher, and they started dragging me around. So we continued to fight. When we heard a rocket coming in, this 15-year-old mountain yard boy rolled me over, laid on top of me. The rocket exploded, and he was killed, protecting my life.
Mm.
Now, this was a 15-year-old boy who had been my mentor, who had been my bodyguard. When I first went to that camp, I told him, I said, Dale, you got to teach me how to survive in the jungle because I'm afraid of snakes and I hate tigers. And he said, I don't want to teach you how to survive. I want to teach you how to live. He said, because the jungle gives us our way of life. He said, I'm going to teach you how to live in the jungle. And for a year, he taught me how to live, not only live in the jungle, but he taught me about camaraderie. He taught me about loving someone else more than yourself. In his life, he taught me about how to live life. And when he died, even in his death, he was teaching me more about what love meant, what sacrificing for someone else meant. After he was killed, they picked me up. 2 other Montagnards picked me up, and we continued to fight until I collapsed anymore, and they called in a medevac. A couple choppers were shot down trying to get to me, but eventually I was medevaced and sent to play crew.
Mm.
But that was the event that the action that took place. But like I said, I couldn't have done any of that if it wasn't for Dale.
Yeah. What was the actual ceremony of winning the award like? And tell us a little bit about that day.
Yeah.
Just take a couple of minutes and share when you received and you were honored. Tell us a little bit about that and how that changed your life moving forward.
Well, you got to remember that I was living in a cave, and I went to my mailbox, and there was a note there that said, "Be down at the local inn. There's gonna be a phone call." So I went down to the local inn. I got that phone call. They said I was being awarded a Medal of Honor. They were going to send a representative up to escort me down to Washington. So I met the guy. He was a captain. His name was Thornberry. I met him at the local inn. Now I'm coming out of the cave. My hair is down below my shoulders. I had jeans on. I didn't have any other kind of clothes. There's a picture in our book where he's just got this look on his face of like, wow, this kind of, are you really a Green Beret and you're going to be a Medal of Honor guy? Because I had just come out of the woods. But I went to Washington with him. They told me if I didn't cut my hair, I couldn't wear my uniform. And Special Forces meant so much to me. I wasn't trying to grow hair for any particular statement. I just cut my hair. So I went. There were 9 of us that received the Medal of Honor in the same ceremony. Actually, one of them, Gary Luttrell, has become a close friend. He was a member of the Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Battalion. He received his medal for action outside the camp. When the camp came under siege, he and a Ranger Battalion were sent in to try to relieve the siege. He received his medal for action outside. I received mine from inside the camp. But we had the ceremony. I felt totally out of place. I don't remember much about the ceremony. All that I remember is that after the ceremony, I went back to the room and I said, I got to go home. I can't be here. Everybody else stayed for days. They had tours and parties and stuff. But the next day, we went to the Hall of Heroes for a ceremony at the Pentagon. After that, they put me on a plane and I went back to New Hampshire, put the Medal of Honor in my duffel bag, and I never took it out again for 7 years.
Mm. Well, Gary, thank you. This is, boy, I'm kind of speechless. I'm so grateful for your story and amen to you and your journey. And thank you for sharing your heart today. We just have a couple of minutes. We want to honor everybody's time as we're honoring you today. David, is there anything you want to ask or add before we start to wrap up? I have a question for you, but is there anything you want to add there?
I just want to, Gary's got a new book out that we sent around. I would encourage it because he talks about the mountain yard people. Gary, I think Dow was the reason you decided to go into middle school.
Yes.
And influence, and that what people may not know is that middle school is really a tough time. I think we all know middle school is tough to be a counselor, but am I correct that there are 500 people serving in the military from this town because of your counseling to them? Is there some huge number? Maybe 500 is too big, but
And
I know that you're responsible for indoctrinating people into the way of life
Gary's positive influence on kids' lives.
yeah, at last count on my Facebook page, I have over 500 former students that are currently in the military or have served, and they're serving all over the world. A number of them are in special forces. So I still get emails, messages from them saying, "Hey, Mr. Beast, just want to let you know where I am, let you know I'm okay. Still remembers your story that you told us." And that's a very special thing
Mm,
to be able to have those people be a part of my life.
mm. Excellent. Thank you. Hey, David, just as we wrap up, take, if you would, 90 seconds and share with us a little bit about how we can support the trust. As lead ambassador, we can support financially anybody that's on to help men like Gary and others that have served as SF members. What are some ways that we can get involved, and how can we do that?
Well, obviously a contribution is the easiest way. We don't provide any of the programs that we're able to do without public support. It's kind of the fuel that makes everything happen. If you go to our website, we have a couple of events this year. We have something called the Great American Shoot, which will be in San Antonio. We have the Atlanta Clays, which will be in Birch Plantation. And then we also have the New Jersey Clays, which will be at Hudson Farm. So those are some ways. We will be having a reception in Washington on October 20th, if everything opens up, where we celebrate the Green Beret family. That's an opportunity for those that wish to attend an event there. The next day, the 1st Special Forces Command has a wreath laying at Arlington. I would like to, before I hand it back to you, Steve, say that in the last month, we have lost 2 incredible Medal of Honor recipients, both from Special Forces. One is Benny Atkins, and his service will be on August 7th at Arlington. And Ron Schur, who was 40 years old, unfortunately died of cancer. If anybody wishes to know more about what they did, you can go to the Medal of Honor Society. There is a bio, a portfolio on all of these guys. But we lost 2 very special people recently.
Thank you, David. And of course, if anybody wants to support, the website is specialforcescharitabletrust.org. specialforcescharitabletrust.org. Thank you all for joining in today. Gary, thank you. Blessings to you. We honor you, and we're grateful for your service. And David, thank you for your leadership on behalf of the trust and the thousands of special forces that are serving us, that you can serve them. And with our financial support and prayers, you're able to do what you're called to do. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day. Blessings. David, any closing comments?
I'm great. Thank you all for coming. I deeply appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks
Thank you,
all.
Gary.
Have a great day and evening.
Yep.